People with only high school diploma who are broke are useless to society. Just deposit like $1 in my bank, he said. This happened at our high school reunion, the first in 25 years. As I was leaving the banquet hall to go to the restroom, I passed by the smoking area and heard Max laughing and talking. Peeking in, I saw Max, now a bank president, chatting away with his friends. It was immediately clear they were talking behind my back. Max, whose parent was a government official, has always looked down on people. I'll leave just $1 and close all my accounts, I muttered to myself quietly and left the scene. My name is David, I'm 43 years old. Today, I came to New York for our 25th high school reunion. I was born and raised in New York, but moved an island in Hawaii 15 years ago when I got married, so this is a bit of a homecoming for me. Having lived in the city my whole life, I was worried if I could adapt to living on such a different life on the island, but as they say, wherever I lay my head is home, and now I'm fully integrated into the local community as an islander. Now, just hearing New York conjures up images of a distant city, and even when I received the invitation to this reunion, I was hesitant. But it's the 30th anniversary reunion, and my wife suggested I should go, so I decided to show up. There are 3 ferries a day from the island. I left home early in the morning to catch the first ferry and arrived in New York by evening. The first thing I did was reunite with my old high school buddy, Mike. Mike and I remained friends even after graduating high school. We haven't seen each other much since I moved to the island, but we've kept in touch for social media now and then. Mike was smart even back in high school, and now he's working as a lawyer. However, when Mike spoke with me, there was a simplicity about him, unaffected by any titles, just like the old days. We hit it off right away and decided to have a pre-reunion celebration, just the 2 of us. The high school I attended was renowned in New York as a preparatory school, attracting students with promising futures. It was a rather uninteresting school where most students attended just to follow the path laid out by their parents. Eventually, I got tired of studying, and, while everyone else was aiming for prestigious universities, I was the only one without a clear plan for the future. Being the only unserious student in my grade, even the teachers and my own parents found me difficult to handle. Mike was the only one who didn't change his attitude towards me. Even now, as a distinguished lawyer, Mike is fundamentally driven by a desire to assist those who are socially vulnerable. He could have been a corporate lawyer, living a comfortable life, but he chose to work in a small-town law office. By the way, I saw Max on the news the other day. Can you believe it? He's the president of Smith Bank now. Mike said, his face flushed from the alcohol. Max, if I recall correctly, was a class representative and his father was a government official at the Treasury Department. I had heard about the youngest ever president of Smith Bank, even on the island where I live, but I had no idea it was my former classmate. That said, my parents were regular company employees, so I had no connections with high-ranking officials and didn't talk much with Max. But I remember that Mike was always very careful around Max because his parent worked as a secretary under Max's father. Max took advantage of that, making Mike, who was the school committee secretary, do all the grunt work and annoying tasks. Regardless of our parents' statuses, I believed there was no need for us kids to be apprehensive around each other, but Mike seemed unable to stand up to Max. Max always liked bossing people around. It's those types of people who end up in charge. I never really liked him much. When I said that, Mike gave her a smile and replied, "That's true." On the day of the reunion, all the classmates who gathered had aged gracefully and seemed to be living decent lives. Living on the island for so long, I found it hard to keep up with their conversations and felt anxious, like a young person visiting New York for the first time. Some had moved to the countryside in anticipation of retirement, but I was the only one living on an island, cut off from the mainland. Sure, countryside living is peaceful and ideal for retirement, but the lack of major hospitals and conveniences can be worrisome. Many islanders have moved back to the mainland with the future in mind. However, the view of the island, surrounded by the sea in every direction, is incomparably beautiful, and I haven't found anything that can replace it. And then there's Emma. Even as I stand here, I find myself thinking about returning to the island. As we were having that conversation, Max, the bank president I mentioned earlier, joined in. No, he didn't just join in. He came to take over the spotlight. Max has always enjoyed drawing attention to himself. When taking the lead among our classmates, Max always had a gleam in his eyes. When I said, "Congratulations on becoming the president," he replied with a nonchalant air, as if to say it was expected. "This is my era now. I'm going to be a force that moves America," he laughed. In a joking manner, I said to Max, "Then, I have a favor to ask of a president who will move America. Could you establish a bank branch on our island? Relying solely on a basic post office is quite inconvenient." Max smirked condescendingly at my words. "Sure, I'll think about it. When that happens, David, you can be the branch manager. I'll make a special exception and hire a high school grad like you because you're my classmate," he said. To that, I responded with a sarcastic "thanks a lot. I don't really mind being a high school graduate, because educational background is a thing of the past. But Max probably comes from a bureaucratic family background and has been through the grind in an academic-oriented society. So, I think he believes it's inevitable to be judged by one's educational background. Now that we are adults, we should just laugh it off." How much time has passed? As the party was reaching its peak, I decided to head to the restroom and left the banquet hall. The restroom was at the end of a long corridor, and on the way, I saw Max and a few classmates in the smoking room. I don't smoke, so I intended to just walk past, but unfortunately, I overheard a bit of their conversation. I heard the word high school grad and realized they were talking about me. In this school, I'm the only one who was just a high school graduate. People with only high school diploma who are broke are useless to society. Just deposit like $1 in my bank, he said. Max said, followed by laughter from several others. And so, memories of days gone by resurface in my mind. Though Max never said it directly to me, he used to laugh about me, a kid from an ordinary family, with his friends behind my back. I think laughing at people is a pitiful act, showing that the persons laughing aren't even aware of their own prejudices. It's surprising that even now, as adults, he would say such things. That such a person can become a bank president is absurd. I'll leave just $1 and close all my accounts, I quietly said to myself. In fact, my wife and I run hotels and inns on the islands of Hawaii, and in recent years, thanks to inbound tourism, we've been booming every day. In particular, the Museum Inn, an old house that was purchased and renovated with the help of a famous architect, is fully booked for the next 3 years. Smith Bank is one of our company's main banks, but I can't leave the assets of the company that my wife Emma and I built in the hands of a bank led by someone like Max. I met Emma, my wife and business partner, when I was 25. After high school, I worked on construction sites for a year, saved up money, and then traveled the world, not knowing what I wanted to do. I thought I had to leave America to find my future. Back then, I blamed America for being boring, ignoring the fact that I didn't have any dreams of my own. The world was as vast as I thought, but walking through foreign megacities didn't bring me much joy. In fact, they didn't seem much different from America. Then I befriended a young man from a small ethnic group in Africa and was invited to his homeland. There, I encountered the essence of living a fulfilling life. Their eyes, living a simple life in nature, sparkled more than anyone I'd seen before, and everyone was smiling. I had traveled through several countries by then, but I hadn't seen any advanced city where everyone was smiling like that. Even America isn't like that. People say Americans used to live fulfilled lives without much material wealth, but nowadays, it seems like Americans live oppressed by their possessions. I'm convinced that what's missing in America today, or rather in myself, is something those in Africa know all too well. So, I decided to live with them for a while and learn how to enjoy life. The local children, curious about their rare American visitor, eagerly exchanged cultural insights and games with me. During this exchange, I noticed a fundamental difference between us. They could easily list their own strengths, while I struggled to name even one thing that I liked about myself. "Why don't you know your good points, even though it's about yourself?" a young girl asked me, leaving me stunned. It wasn't that America was boring. I realized that not having interests in life came from not even being interested in myself. Upon returning home, I decided to travel across America with a map in hand. I realized I knew nothing of America outside New York, where I was born and raised. I wanted to explore various places in America and talk to different people. That's when I met Emma on an island in Hawaii. I fell in love with the island's beautiful landscapes and atmosphere and spent some time helping the locals while enjoying the scenery. In that scene, Emma was there. She was about high school age and would visit the lighthouse on the Cape every day to gaze at the sea. According to the lady who ran the inn where I was staying, Emma was the daughter of a local influential figure, born not in a good health and had never left the island. Since the island has schools up to junior high, but no high school, one has to go to the mainland for further education. However, Emma's health made that impossible. There are limits to what one can achieve by simply opening a textbook and studying on their own. Then I offered to tutor her as one of her home teachers. At first, her parents were puzzled by me, a stranger whose background they didn't know, but once they learned that I had gained the trust of the islanders, they kindly took me in. After staying on the island for about a year and teaching Emma, I resumed my travels, exploring every corner of America from north to south for several years. This extensive journey deepened my appreciation for America, but the most memorable place was the island where I met Emma. I wanted to live there forever. Emma, with whom I had kept in touch, also wanted me to return. Her parents trusted me, and upon my return, Emma and I got married. I was the one who proposed renovating the buildings on the island and initiating a revitalization project. By showcasing the island's charm through tourism and promoting it as a place for younger generations to relocate, we aimed to preserve the island's environment, a concept Emma's parents supported. Thus, a Grand Island revitalization project was launched. What pleased me most was that Emma, who had resigned herself to a life constrained by her frail health on the island, was able to awaken her dormant talents by getting involved in the project. She loved to paint and was truly talented at creating wonderful pieces. Together, with the support of the islanders and Emma's parents, we renovated the entire island, turning it into a significant industry that even gained international attention. However, for someone like Max, who's taking it easy in the convenient world of New York, the beauty might be hard to appreciate. They believe they're the ones driving American society. The next day, I visited Smith Bank's headquarters, where Max worked. After handing in my business card at the reception, I was quickly shown to a meeting room. Just mentioning my name would likely elicit laughter, but dropping my company's name would bring Max himself to meet me. As expected, Max was visibly shocked to see me. "Hey, just doing as you said." When I said that, Max, sweating on his forehead, asked back, "Doing what I said?" "Yes, I've decided to leave only $1 out of the $70 million and deposit the rest with another bank." Max, who hadn't expected me to be a president, suddenly changed his attitude as if his previous behavior was a lie. lowering his stance. "Please don't say that, President Tamil. Weren't we schoolmates, were we?" he pleaded. His sudden change in demeanor was so astonishing that it went beyond anger and disbelief to almost admiration. Was this how he ingratiated himself with others to climb to the position of bank president? No matter how much he lowered himself, I knew Max's true nature. "I can go along with such a proposal now. Sorry, but I'll be moving my deposit. Not closing the account, though. I may deposit again if I feel like it," I said. At that, Max's eyes gleamed sharply. "Why do you have to go through the trouble of moving your deposit then? Is this some kind of spite against me? It's hard to predict what a poor man might do if he suddenly come into money," he said, finally revealing his true self in front of me. "So, that's what you really think? Indeed, I am a newcomer to success in business over the past decade. I don't know the proper way to use money, nor understand the etiquette, but I do want to use what I have for the benefit of others," I replied earnestly, but Max half listened with a smirk. "Is that so? Well, my apologies for calling you poor, but if you're unsure, why not let professionals handle the investments? Just holding onto money won't increase it. You have to aim to grow it," Max insisted, clearly not wanting my company's assets moved to another bank. It's as if he's saying what's mine is his, and what's his is also his. Sure, it's always good if the money increases, but we're interested in important assets here. We'd want to carefully choose who we are dealing with. In that case, it should definitely be Smith Bank," Max exclaimed. "He seems to have a lot of confidence in his job. Or perhaps he's never doubted anything about himself. He was always believing he's right and supremely competent." I couldn't help but feel a bit envious of Max. Riding the rails laid by predecessors without a single doubt, I felt I could never measure up to Max. But even if Max was right, I couldn't bring myself to like his way of thinking. "You think money is the most important thing in this world, don't you?" I asked. Max laughed out loud. "Ha ha ha, I wouldn't go that far. Saying money is more important than human life would cause an uproar. Even if I fought it, I wouldn't say it," he said. "So, you do think so, just not out loud." Max's face deepened with wrinkles, casting stark shadows. It was as if the demon was smirking. "David, there's no doubt that money moves this world. No matter how strong your sense of justice is, it crumbles like a straw hut before money. I've seen it," he said. "I wonder whose view of the world is broader, Max's or mine." I reminisced about my past travels. The little girl from the African tribe I met back then probably didn't even know what money was. However, I learned something very important from that little girl. "Still, I can't trust you, so I can't trust this bank you manage. I'll be moving my deposit," I stated clearly. Emma must feel the same way, I'm sure. But Max wouldn't back down easily. "You don't understand anything. You're on the rise now and not thinking about the future, but when the time comes, you won't get much support from other banks, but I'd lend you the money, because we're school friends, after all." I was astounded by Max's shamelessness in saying such things. "School friends? You've been mocking me for being a high school graduate. You don't think of me as a friend at all, do you?" Max laughed, "Mocking you? Have I ever called you stupid? I might have said you're a high school graduate, but that's just a fact. It's trivial." To Max, it seems everything but money is trivial. He can pretend to be friends with anyone for money. I felt increasingly sad, frustrated by the inability to have an honest conversation. I could connect with people of different ethnicities, cultures, and languages, yet I found such a vast difference in values with a fellow American. "I've never once thought of you as a friend, so please, stop considering me as a school friend. It's unsettling." I'll never forget the look on Max's face when I said that. It was a face of utter despair, likely to haunt my dreams. In the end, I ignored Max's words and moved our company's main banking to another bank. When I told Mike about this, he sighed and said, "I see, it can't be helped. But sometimes it's better to cut ties completely." Mike, too, it seems, has cut ties with his father. According to what I've heard, his father wanted him to pursue a career in politics. So his father told Mike that he has been working, bowing and apologizing, under Max's father, who is a bureaucrat. However, Mike rebelled against his father's words. After enduring Max's pressure during high school years, was he expected to enter a world filled with nothing but constraints? Mike left his father to become a local lawyer, a dream he had long cherished, and worked hard to pay for his college expenses by himself. David, your thinking is correct. It's not about the results. What one feels in their heart is what's right. Max lacks his heart, Mike said. Indeed, I couldn't feel any heart in Max's words. And I sensed dark clouds looming over his future without one. Soon after, news broke that the youngest ever president of Smith Bank had resigned. Apparently, his prejudiced remarks and intimidating behavior towards his subordinates had been leaked. In the past, such matters could have been hushed before becoming public, but nowadays, the general public can be the first to know about incidents. Once spread in the vast world of the internet, information proliferates uncontrollably. Max received countless anonymous defamations, leading him to become paranoid and forcing him to lay low for a while. I felt a bit sorry for him, but this might be a case of poetic justice. A person without a heart attracts heartless words, which seems almost self-evident. As the island revitalization progressed smoothly and more young people expressed a desire to move here, I shared with Emma one wish I had. I wanted to invite the girl who had made me realize the truth back then to our island. I want to go back to the village in Africa once more, bring the girl, and guide her to this island. If the girl says no, then it can't be helped. After all, this is just my own wish. But if she declined, I intended to gift her one of Emma's paintings of the island before returning. Holding Emma's painting close, I set off once again from America, ready to share my story with the girl properly this time. On the day of the farewell and welcome party, I arrived at the reserved restaurant right on time, as I had informed everyone. However, no one showed up even after the scheduled time had passed. Finally, I received a call, and to my surprise, it was from Steve, the department head. "Why do I have to drink with a loser? Know your place." After saying that, Steve burst into uncontrollable laughter, as if he couldn't hold it in any longer. I was so infuriated by his maliciousness that I was trembling with anger. "You guys don't want to work with me anymore, right? Well, none of you need to come to work from tomorrow." "What?" Steve asked back, sounding annoyed, as I suddenly changed my tone. "You've gotten way too cocky. Well, look forward to tomorrow. My name is Mark. I'm a middle-aged man in my late 50s, having been in the workplace for 30 years. Having worked at the same company since my graduation, I was considering settling down for a peaceful life, but an unexpected turning point arrived. Despite my age, I found myself starting work at a new company. My new chosen company manufactures electronics and is especially known for its cameras. It's such a major player in camera industry. This is the place that comes to mind. Its products, sought after for both their precision and ease of use, are popular not only among camera enthusiasts but also among beginners. Although losing market share to phones at one point, the company has recently been gaining new customers. This is probably because tour cameras and retro cameras are becoming fashionable. Gratefully, the factory is busy operating every day, with new products being announced every season. Today is the day I start work at my new workplace. Even though I'm in my late 50s, I'm just like any other newcomer here, knowing nothing. Working with young people who could be the age of my children together, it's a lie to say I'm not anxious. But the excitement of trying something new is a feeling I haven't experienced in a long time, and I was fidgety from the morning. Upon arriving at work, I was immediately guided to my department. There were a few other employees joining at the same time as me, all of them fresh faces in brand new recruit suits. Standing alongside a row of young people, I was the only one who felt the difference in age, but also thrilled with anticipation and nervousness. In this new workplace, I will be learning the job from scratch, just like them. My mentor was an employee about the age of my son. After a general explanation of the company's philosophy and business, we were briefed on our job duties. The employee guiding me seemed a little uncomfortable instructing someone in their late 50s at first, but we gradually warmed up to each other after talking for a while. I was introduced to many other employees, from a veteran with 30 years of service to a female employee soon going on maternity leave. I exchanged greetings with many employees. Everyone was kind to me, an old guy like myself, and I was touched. But there was one troublesome individual. That was the department head, Steve. Steve is in his late 50s, just like me. He's favored by the executive director, Michael, and always carries himself with overflowing confidence. He seemed quite motivated at first, as he came to encourage us new recruits. However, listening to his conversation with my mentor, I couldn't help but notice many concerning remarks. "Hey, bring me a coffee," he ordered in a commanding tone. The employee was in the middle of conversation with me, but left the room as ordered, without finishing his explanation to me. Steve, looking satisfied as he watched the employees retreating back, added, "Hurry up and run, you know that, right?" and then started smoking with a content look. This company is supposed to be smoke-free indoors. Yet, unable to speak up to Steve, who is their superior, the other employees simply turned a blind eye. A pregnant female employee looked uncomfortable in the room. She probably wanted to avoid the smoke but couldn't leave her seat during work hours. I couldn't help but be concerned and reluctantly approached Steve. "Excuse me, but could you please smoke in the smoking area?" The employees around me became noticeably restless all at once. Steve immediately frowned and said, What are you talking about? My name is Mark and I've recently joined a company. I believe some people might be sensitive to cigarette smoke, so I'd appreciate it if you could put out your cigarette." I could feel a surge of anger brewing in Steve's eyes. With an attitude that suggested he wouldn't tolerate any defiance, I braced myself for trouble. "Please put out your cigarette now. I was just informed that, according to company policy, smoking inside the building is prohibited." When I reiterated my request, Steve shockingly kicked a nearby desk with all his might. The surrounding area fell into a dead silence, and everyone was looking at me and Steve. "You seem to have a lot to say for yourself. Do you even know who I am? With just one word from me, I can make or break your future. You do understand that, right?" Leaving those words behind, Steve left the room without waiting for my response. The concerned looks of my colleagues converged on me, who was left behind. I tried to reassure them. "I apologize for the disturbance. Perhaps I spoke out of turn." The employees assured me it was okay, but their faces clearly showed unease. Seeing their reactions, I felt anxious about how I should behave at the company from now on. Unfortunately, my fears turned out to be true. I became a target for Steve's animosity. Though I worked at the head office, Steve would find reasons to visit my department. After his visits, I would often find the documents I left on my desk thrown away in the trash can. My cup of tea would be spilled as well. It was Steve doing these all childish pranks. The other employees, unable to protect me, began turning a blind eye to the harassment instead of addressing it. Getting close to me might make them the next target. An employee who had been helping me with my work was told by Steve in passing, "You better choose who you work with more carefully." As rumors spread, people started avoiding me. Now, even for essential work-related communications, nobody would speak to me directly, opting to send emails instead. Employees told a lie about meeting times, and they began refusing work requests I made. It seemed as though Steve had ordered it, turning the whole department against me. I was frustrated by the situation. I had just started working at this new company, full of enthusiasm and excitement like in my early days. Just as I was beginning to realize the advantages of my changing job, I didn't think that I would be targeted by Steve for no reason. But Steve's harassment persisted. Eventually, it wasn't just about obstructing my work. He began to insult me directly. "Oh, our company really got the short end of the stick. Who quits their job in their 50s? What did he do to get kicked out of his last job? Must have been a real dead weight, so they told him they didn't need a burden," he would say, making baseless accusations and laughing to himself. No matter what I retorted, Steve would come back with 100 times more sarcasm. I gritted my teeth and held on, thinking there was nothing else I could do. Steve will probably lose interest in harassment towards me eventually. I just need to endure until then. As I continued to work with that thought, Steve's visits gradually decreased, just as I had hoped. Then, employees began to work with me again, and little by little, some started to talk to me. I hoped that the workplace would become enjoyable again if things continued this way. That's when the incident happened. One day, as I was about to leave work, Steve approached me. "Hey Mark, we're having a welcome and farewell party tomorrow. On behalf of new employees, you're the one who makes the reservation. Don't pick a lousy place, or you'll regret it, got it?" Steve was about to leave after saying his piece, but I hurriedly called out to him. "A welcome and farewell party. It is quite sudden that it will be held tomorrow. Will everyone be attending? We have about 80 people, right?" "Of course, all 80 will attend. You have a problem with what? We're going to have this party for you, and you're even complaining. I've given a useless person like you a role. Be grateful and do your job." Steve cut off my question and forcefully ordered me to make the reservation. I can feel in my heart that he is really an arrogant person who doesn't even listen to other people's convenience. However, I was honestly pleased that he was organizing a welcome and farewell party. I was expecting more harassment, so even though it came with sarcasm, I was grateful for the party. I took out my phone and started searching for a venue that could rent out their entire floor. I started calling all the reputable nearby restaurants one by one to check for availability. A small pub would have been fine for a few people, but we're talking about a large group of 80 people. And with the event being so sudden, set for the next day, it wasn't easy to find a place right away. After being turned down several times but persistently making more calls, I finally found a restaurant willing to accommodate us for a private event. The staff at the restaurant were very friendly, and the all-you-can-eat and drink menu looked delicious. I was sure that Steve and the other employees would be pleased. Looking forward to the event, I was completely blindsided by what happened next. On the day of the welcome and farewell party, I arrived at the booked restaurant exactly at the time I had informed everyone. After telling the staff, "I have a reservation under the name Mark," I was led to the empty, reserved space. "It looks like no one's here yet." I took the seat in the corner, feeling a sense of relief and release from tension. I hoped this welcome and farewell party would help me get closer to everyone in the office. If I just focused on my work, surely even Steve would come to understand. With these thoughts, I waited eagerly for the employees to show up. But even after the scheduled time, no one appeared. 15 minutes, then 30 minutes passed, and still, no one came through the door. The staff at the restaurant started looking anxious too, glancing at me as if they wanted to say something. Something's wrong. Do they not know where it is? I tried to contact my colleagues on my phone, but couldn't get through to anyone. No matter how many times I called, all I got was the ringing tone. Finally, I received a call, and it was from Steve. Relieved to finally get in touch, I answered the phone. "This is Mark. Nobody has shown up for the welcome and farewell party yet. It's past the start time. What's happening?" Then Steve said something unbelievable over the phone. "Mark, you're such a loser. Did you seriously think you were going to be welcomed? Why should we waste our precious time drinking with an incompetent like you? Know your place." With that, Steve burst into uncontrollable laughter. I could hear more laughters in the background. This means that several people, along with Steve, decided to bail on the event. I confronted Steve in a low voice. "So, you never planned to have the welcome and farewell party in the first place? Nobody felt like welcoming you. We just let you enjoy the dream of organizing your own welcome and farewell party, out of pity." Steve laughed even more. I was shaking with anger at the sheer malice of his actions. Steve continued to mock me. "You've already had your welcome and farewell party, so you don't need to come to the company anymore. We don't want to work with someone incompetent like you." "Is that so? This has made it very clear what kind of person you are, Steve. You don't want to work with me, right? Should I take it that everyone in the department feels the same?" Steve yelled back in annoyance as I asked, holding back my anger. "That's what I've been saying. In addition to being incompetent at your job, are you also deaf? Well, none of you need to come to work from tomorrow." "What?" Steve sounded annoyed as I suddenly changed my tone. "What is this incompetent blabbering about? Are you stupid? You've gotten way too cocky. Well, look forward to tomorrow." With that, I hung up the phone unilaterally. Steve seemed to be making a fuss on the other end, but it was no longer my concern. Afterward, I carefully considered what I should do next. The next day, there was a huge commotion at the company. People were crowding around the company notice board, frantically wondering what had happened and what it all meant. Employees from other departments also gathered, hearing the noise, making the area in front of the notice board as crowded as a station during rush hour. The notice board displayed details and reasons for disciplinary actions against employees. Disciplinary actions, including pay cuts and demotions, were taken against 79 employees from my department. What does this mean? Did you know about this, Mark?" An employee, realizing I was the only one not demoted, approached me with a question. Just as I was about to answer, Steve appeared on the scene, his face beet red. He stared at the notice board as if to burn holes through it, then stormed up to me, fuming as if steam were about to burst from his head. "Why should I be demoted and transferred? And why are you being announced as the new HR director? Did you pull some strings with the higher-ups?" Steve, red-faced and angry yet smirking maliciously, confronted me. "No, I was called to this company to be the HR director from the start." Upon hearing the truth, Steve's face turned even redder, and he began to sweat profusely. Before coming to this company, I worked in a globally renowned electronics company, specifically in the computer department. I had moved through various departments and ultimately contributed to the workplace as the HR director until I left. When I joined, it was a time when nearly half of all generations had started owning computers, and the popularity was skyrocketing. Eventually, it became an era where everyone had a personal computer, boasting tremendous sales. However, the brand faced a crisis with frequent product defects, leading to a loss of trust. At that time, as the HR director, I was entrusted with significant responsibilities and decisions, but I fought to protect our employees as much as possible. A company thrives because its employees work hard. I did my best to create a comfortable workplace, promoting young employees to executive positions and making it easier to take paid and child care leave. As a result, the turnover rate significantly dropped compared to before the defect issues, and the employees became able to work with high motivation and smiles. The company's performance made a V-shaped recovery, becoming a heartwarming story featured in the media and magazines. At that time, the camera manufacturer I now work for was one of our clients. Mr. Johnson, the president of the company, often greeted me and engaged in small talk. Hearing about my achievements, he directly recruited me, saying he wanted me to join his company. I never expected to be offered the position of HR director. As I finished my story, Steve became hilariously flustered. "But you joined as a new employee. It's absurd for an HR director to be treated as a new employee." I was a complete newcomer to this company. Since I was going to be the HR director, I wanted to see the company's internal situation with my own eyes. I said this with a smile. I never expected to uncover such an astonishing fact. I couldn't imagine a department head would do such petty harassment. I ended up causing quite a trouble for the restaurant yesterday. It was when Steve, with his fists trembling, was about to retort to my words. "Which one of you is Mark? You're here, aren't you, Mark?" A portly middle-aged man, with his face contorted in anger, approached us. It was Michael, who had favored on Steve. "I am Mark. How may I help you?" The area fell silent and tense as I responded. Then Michael, with his face turning beet red, started yelling angrily. "What does it mean that Steve has been demoted? How dare you make such a decision without talking to me, the executive director? I've joined as the new HR director. Therefore, I made the necessary personnel changes. That's an abuse of authority. I won't accept it. I've heard from Steve about the troubles caused by an utterly incompetent subordinate. How can such a person be the HR director?" Michael seemed ready to complain further, but I calmly presented something. "Good timing. I had something to discuss with you as well. Here's the bill from the restaurant where yesterday's welcome and farewell party was supposed to be held. It's the cancellation fee for 80 people. Should I send this bill to Steve, or would you prefer to take responsibility for your subordinate's mistake, Michael?" Michael slapped the bill onto the floor, and while spitting, he said, "This must be your harassment, isn't it? Do you have any proof that Steve canceled it?" "I have the proof right here." I calmly took out my phone and played the recorded conversation. It was the conversation with Steve from when he bailed on the event yesterday. As the recording played, the murmurs around us grew louder. "As you can hear, I have the proof, so please pay the bill. I'll definitely crush you." It was when Michael's eyes bulged with anger. "It's quite lively here, but what seems to be the matter?" "Mr. Johnson." It was Mr. Johnson who appeared. Seeing him, Michael began to fidget nervously. "Now everyone, could you please return to your work? Let's give our best effort today as well." At his request, the employees surrounding us went back to their departments. After a while, only I, Steve, Michael, and Mr. Johnson remained. Michael glared at me with sharp eyes. "Mr. Johnson, this man Mark has caused tremendous trouble for Steve." "Trouble? Could you elaborate for me?" As Mr. Johnson faced me, Steve and Michael both smirked with a look of confidence. They must have thought he would take their side. I calmly began to explain. Michael here planned to promote Steve to department head by bribing the former HR director to do his bidding. Michael frantically started to refute my accusation. "Mr. Johnson, his story is nonsense. He's a terrible man who lies effortlessly to protect himself. I have evidence right here." I calmly handed the investigative documents I brought to him. As he read, his expression grew grim, while Michael and Steve turned pale and began to tremble. Knowing Michael's actions, I couldn't overlook this as the new HR director, which is why I made the personnel changes. After hearing my explanation, Mr. Johnson sighed wearily. Thank you, Mark. I had heard rumors about Michael and his group's actions before, so, regrettably, I understand now after seeing the investigation documents. Hearing this, Michael collapsed to his knees, and Steve stood agape, speechless. Mr. Johnson glanced at them, then reassuringly patted my shoulder. Only the pitiful cries of Michael and Steve echoed in the room. Later, Michael, who would have been fired under normal circumstances, was demoted to a regular employee and transferred to a remote factory, thanks to Mr. Johnson's leniency. However, it seems that even without his title, he couldn't shake off the habit of acting superior, which he had developed over the years as an executive. Even at the factory, he continued to issue bossy orders, which apparently made him quite unpopular with the local staff. A few months later, he was sued by a subordinate and was finally dismissed for disciplinary reasons. Without any severance pay, his life became quite difficult. Steve was also demoted to a regular employee and transferred to another branch. However, the story of his actions at the head office quickly spread, making his life there unbearable, leading him to quit his job. After losing his job, he was divorced by his wife and had to hand over the house as alimony, leaving him with nothing. Nobody knows his whereabouts and what he's doing now. As for the employees who mocked me under Steve's influence, it was deemed they couldn't stand up to him. The company decided to rehire those who sincerely regretted their actions. Finally, with all the turmoil settled, I began my work as the HR director. Today, as a start, I plan to visit each department to listen to the employees' requests. The company thrives because of the hard work of its employees. Therefore, I want to continue striving to create a good company where employees can work comfortably. Respecting each other and building a supportive relationship among colleagues is crucial for the company's growth. I aim to quietly support those working on the front lines, ensuring they can work with smiles on their faces.